This week's parsha is Parshat Vayikra, and of course it begins Chumash Vayikra, and it is certainly deserving of our attention. However, I would like to devote this shir to Pesach. It's in a couple of weeks, and it's important to get an orientation of the Chagim before we encounter them. And this shir is based on a shir I heard from Rav Bernstein, his 2018 shir, where he talks about the Tzfarde'a, the plague of frogs. There are actually a minority of commentators who say that Tzfarde'a were crocodiles. That's a minority. I believe Abarbanel is one of them. And one question by the way, the reason why we're speaking about Tzfarde'a is because, of course, part of the mitzvah of Seder is the Haggadah. That's a mitzvah midoraita, actually, to tell over the story of the Exodus of Egypt. And, of course, the Makkahs played a huge role in the Exodus from Egypt, and just trying to understand exactly what it was that God did in just systematically obliterating the Egyptians over a year will help us really appreciate the miracles that he wrought for us. So we'll focus in on one of the Makkahs. So here we are, Makkah Tzfarde'a. We're in Parshat Vayikra. That was several weeks ago, and we'll be taking a close look at the Psukim. So we're in chapter 7, verse 26, that's where it begins, and there are a number of psukim that are devoted to this Makkah. Now, what a person asks is why Tzfarde'a? Many people, if you were to ask people what seems like kind of the least intrusive Makkah, I think many people would say Tzfarde'a, frogs. What's so bad about frogs? They're annoying maybe, but how bad can it really be? So let's get a sense of how bad it can really be. So first, why frogs? So there are many answers to this. Many of them classics, but one of them, or one of the classic answers, is that because the Egyptians caused the Jewish people to cry out, to wail, right? It says, Vayareu otanu v'ya'anunu. That's in Parshat Shemot, in the first several psukim. So they afflicted us and they caused us to cry out. So because they caused the Jewish people to cry out, therefore they get a week of loud noises. And it's so much so, actually, that we see when Moshe davens, the Torah uses a very interesting expression to describe his prayers. That is to say, we're in chapter 8, verse 8 of Shemot, and it says like this: "Vayetze Moshe v'Aaron me'im Paro," and they left Paro after they decided to end the Makkah. It says, "Vayitzak Moshe Hashem." Sorry. Vayitzak Moshe Hashem al dvar hatzfardim asher sam lefaro. Moshe shouted to Hashem. Why is Moshe shouting? What's he screaming about? The answer is because the Tzfarde'a are so loud. It's impossible to hear anything. They're literally croaking so loudly, it's deafening. And moreover, we actually again see this from the Psukim. Vayitzak Moshe Hashem al dvar hatzfardim, over the sounds, over the voices of the Tzfardim. It was incessant, and it was so loud that Moshe had to shout. It doesn't say that by any of the other psukim that Moshe shouted. So that just gives us a sense of what it must have been like, just this constant, incessant noise that the Tzfardim were afflicting the Egyptians with. So that's an introductory comment. However, I want to focus more in on when Paro has had enough. He's dealt with this Makkah, and she doesn't want to hear about it anymore. And so he calls in Moshe, and he says as follows. So now we're in verse 4. It says, Vayikra Pharaoh Moshe Aaron, right? He calls Moshe and Aaron. Vayomer Chatiru al Hashem v'yaser tzfardim mimeni homeami. So he says, pray to Hashem for me that he should get rid of these tzfardim from me. Got to worry about number one first. It's Paro after all. Homeami. If you're already gonna help me, then you may as well help my people too. That's the kind of king that Pharaoh was. Right? And I'll send out the nation and they can go make their sacrifices to God. Okay. So if you're Moshe LaFaro, he's paralyzed. The Matai atir lecho v'lavadecha ulamcha lachrit atzfardim v'mcham mibatecha rak b'yot yisharna. Sorry. So if you're Moshe LaFaro, he's paralyzed. The Matai atir lecha ulavadecha. Okay. So Moshe says, and the way the pshat of this pasuk, and the way we normally were to read this pasuk, it says like this: Moses said to Pharaoh, glorify yourself over me, for when should I entreat for you, for your servants and for your people, to excise the frogs? When do you want me to do this? And to this, Paro says, astoundingly, Vayomer, Lemachar, tomorrow sounds good. Tomorrow works for me. And that is kind of shocking because Moshe is kind of giving him an open option. He's like, you're suffering a divinely sent plague. When would you like it to be done? And Paro is thinking about it. He's like, tomorrow. That's pretty good for me. What do you mean tomorrow? Right now. You have Moshe in front of you. What are you waiting for tomorrow for? You want to endure another 24 hours of plague? What's the deal? How could he have asked for another day of plague? So, one of the Mefarshim, I believe he was actually a Rishon, his name is the Panech Raza. He says, no, we need to pay really, really close attention to the Pesukim, because really, if you were to see this, Paro is asking for two things from Moshe and Aaron. First, he says like this: Hatiru el Hashem v'yasar etzfardi mimeni u'me'ami. Right? Pray to God for him to God to remove these Tzfardim from me and my nation. That's one. And then two, v'ashlachat am v'yizbachu l'Hashem, and I will send out the Jewish people. And then Moshe says, V'yom Moshe l'Faro hitper alai lematai. Now, after the word lamatai, but before the very next word atir, there's actually a line in the middle. Now, we tend not to really pay attention to those lines, but they are important, and they have a role there. So what the Panech Raza says is like this. He says, Moshe is responding to each question. He's saying, lamatai, as in, when are you going to send the people out? And then, atir lecha lamadecha, and yeah, I'll pray for you, and that'll be fine. And then, in the next pasuk, v'yomer, and then Paro says, lamachar, tomorrow I'll send the people out, and that's how the conversation goes. That's what's going on. That's the Panech Raza. However, there are other Rishonim who disagree and say no. Lamatai Atir is actually, they flow together. Moshe is saying, when would you like me to remove the frogs? And in fact, Paro does say tomorrow. Now, what is Paro thinking? So the Chizkuni gives a really interesting answer. He says, look, Paro still has his doubts about Moshe. We're only on plague 2. Now, there's no question that something is going on here. The frogs have come. However, it's well known, and this is covered, by the way, in even popular fiction. We saw this in King Solomon's Mines. I believe it was by T. Rider Haggard or something like that. That the form of kishuf, right, of sorcery, of witchcraft, took the guise of kind of taking advantage of certain natural phenomena that were going to happen anyway, then predicting them before they happen, and then acting as if, I'm the one who did this sorcery, and I'm the one who caused this to come about, even though they would have come about anyway. It's not because of him. It was trickery, really. And so Paro says, now, I know these frogs have come from somewhere, and this is all very strange. However, Moshe is coming over, and he's like, hey, I'm happy to pray for you. When would you like me to get rid of them? Now, Paro has his doubts about Moshe, and he's thinking, hang on a second. Moshe knows that I'm suffering here. I'm under distress, and he's offering to pray for me. So if he's doing that, he must know that I'm going to say now. Now, if I say now, Moshe might be one to know that the frogs are going to be leaving anyway. So Paro gets to thinking, he's like, I'm going to catch Moshe. I'm going to say, pray for them to leave tomorrow. Because now, Paro says, if the Tzfarde'a leave early, then I could catch him out and show, aha, you're not really in charge of these frogs. It would have happened anyway, and you're this trickster. That was his response. Now, Paro asked for it, and he got it. Why? Because you see, Vayomer lamachar, Vayomer, and Moshe responds, Kidvarecha, as you wish, enjoy your extra 24 hours of plague, which is amazing because Paro is willing to risk going through another day of plague just to catch him out, and of course it ended up failing. We will end it there. Have a Shabbat Shalom. Take care.